heavily like virtual led, learning culture because we're not only in SF, but we're in Toronto, Atlanta, and in EMEA and APJ. So we were almost like already in this like virtual delivery approach. It's just now people are like, we miss in-person training, so oh well. But couple of things that we learned after doing this for 2 years at the same company is that people were almost waiting for the learning. They were like, PJ, when are you going to do learning? Like, and so I was just bouncing around and delivering team building and doing just like for interns and doing it for teams and doing it for the audiences. And so I was that's obviously not for scale. But if we start to realize just 10% of learning retention actually just comes from that in-person experience. And I was realizing, oh my goodness, 80, like the 90%, whereas, well, no, so people are almost like too reliant on PJ, tell us what to do and say, but you can't wait until the scheduled learning session to figure that out, right? So this year we really had to find ways in which, where is that 20% of that mentoring and coaching coming from? So equipping our managers with coaching skills. And then like the 70% is that on the job. And we all know 70, 20, 10, but I didn't realize like how much we almost like build a muscle of like, you have to go to training to know those things. And now we're at a point where can we meet that person where they are in their journey? Or how can we surround the learner with people beyond just PJ? So from a learning sprint or cohort-based approach, we're going to test out this cohort. In conversation with Andrew, we've learned that people like that immediate, like 6-person sweet spot where everyone has a chance to speak. You can learn from your peers. You're sort of facilitating that conversation. We try this out a little bit in our leadership development program. We have leader coaches do this. But it's almost like just twice and then it's over. So how do we kind of keep that conversation going and keeping these cohorts together? So for executive development, because it's only a few VPs, we have a total of 20. They're each going to be in these cohorts, and each learning sprint, the cohorts will stay the same, even though the topic's going to change. So this first one, we're hoping that we build those relationships, that community across these different topics. And hopefully the organic thing that will happen is hopefully they're going to rely on that cohort for cross-functional questions or customer questions. They don't have to wait until they start to learn together. They're already this nice little cohort that's an engine trying to seek high performance. I mean, obviously we haven't started anything yet, so I can't tell you what the result is, but that continuous conversation is what we haven't been as good at. Is we've had the training, the survey, post-3-day survey, so that's how we kept the conversation going. But now we have to almost think about how the learner is paired with other learners and experts to keep that conversation going. So we're designing the sprint to be more in this cohort base, and we're going to do a similar model for we're redesigning some of our leadership development training to be delivered virtually. So we're going to try this cohort based again to see what kind of models work and test them out and then really scale them into next year. So that's a little bit about the continuous. It's like, I think about continuous culture, but continuous like conversation about how you're applying what you're learning. So if it's about coaching, like how have you listened more with your team? How have you questioned more? And maybe you're not going to wait for me to ask you those questions. Maybe your peer can. So we're going to see what happens. We're trying to create that environment for this learning sprint and see what the response is.
No, that's super. I mean, I think, it was interesting as you were talking about that. It's like, I think it's sort of building that learning imperative. Like, why is it important for you to continue learning? And I think you're absolutely right in terms of the time that's sort of not spent in the classroom and how is that being spent? And, what are those experiences that people need to have? And the thing, as you were talking, I think the thing I was reflecting on that has worked well for us, and again, not specifically in our kind of external training business, but internally, is what's the value of the learning to doing something that shows the value of that learning to the individual and to the company. So like, for example, our engineering organization does this thing called a nerd camp. So basically people can take a week and, really dive deep into a particular topic, but they have to kind of put together a justification for that. And, what are they going to come away with? And oftentimes that'll end up like in a blog post, that we can put out as some thought leadership. And so, I think the cool thing about that is that that's learning that you can do that has a tangible benefit to both you as an individual. You get to kind of put your name on a blog post and really get to, nerd camp. Sorry, like a camp, nerd camp. Yeah. And then, you get to put that out there. And then also that's good for the company as well, right? Because that has some tangible, marketing and other benefits for what we're doing. And so I think what I've seen is the more that you're able to kind of bring all those things together and show the individual how it's beneficial to them, and also like how, maybe they can come up with an output or whatever that might be that's beneficial to the company, and kind of connect those things together. That can be really powerful to get people invested in what they're doing.
I love that idea. Like this concept of learning in public, I see this a lot in sort of like the indie course creator community that's growing up. A lot of people like taking all these online courses and that now, and this idea of learning in public is like, just go and figure like a new topic that you're interested in, go and learn about it and share what you're learning. Go in with that beginner's mindset and kind of share those points, and everyone else gets to benefit from that. Yeah, it really feels like it's challenging to create that environment in a corporate setting, in a work setting, right? Yeah, it sort of reminds me, Dom, of what Dominic, what we're talking about. Like you said, I think you said it was something you were wanting to do, and we're just starting to think about curating what people are passionate about. Like,
yeah,
and we like and identifying that, like almost getting them to self-identify what that is.
Yes, yeah. I'd love to be able to figure out a way to take PJ's steps and create that. Right now, from a organizational maturity standpoint, we're kind of halfway between a continuum of, at one end we're at, a full continuous learning environment, and at the other end we're in that compliance training mindset, and we're probably 40 to 50% shifting towards continuous learning. And so what one of the things that I'm trying to do is, in our LMS system, we have a whole bunch of skill set and competency related training offerings, and not a lot of our people actively go into our system to see what's there. I mean, we've probably got maybe, out of all of the training hours for the year, probably maybe 10% was on an elective basis, and we haven't gotten to the point where we have much in the way of marketing the opportunities in there, marketing ways to broaden the scope of everyone's passions and things like that. But at the very least, when they go in and complete their compliance training, I've set up the dashboard, their individual dashboard in our system, where this little box, they've got their required training that they got to do, but in this big box I've got things listed. Oh, look, I've got information on this and that, and and hopefully that will kind of spur people on to take some self-initiative. But that is my ultimate goal, is to try and start getting people to see, oh, it'd be really cool if we had something on XYZ. Oh, I know someone who'd be great to refer, work with, try and pull that information together and create a learning experience for people who'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to building the culture, right? I think you guys have made a lot of great points. And one thing that you said, Dominic, that really rang true to me is it's the push and pull, man. How do people get stuff, right? Yes, they are interested and want it. And we know that especially this younger generation of people coming in, getting hired right now, it's all millennials and then Gen Z and younger, right? These people, they don't come in thinking, I'm going to work this job for the rest of my life. So I'm going to make cogs every day and they're going to be happy. No, they want to do this job until they figure out what the next one is. And then whatever the next one is, And our goal, I see, is to keep this person in our company moving around, ping-ponging from job to job, pinballing or whatever. Because then I don't have to pay to onboard somebody over and over and over. It's all dollars, right? So, and that's the next discussion is how do we show the ROI, right? And I think a lot of it comes back to onboarding, which I'm very passionate about. But I think that what you're doing, Dominic, you're putting all this stuff right in front of their face, but they still won't grab it, right? So you're pushing it, but it's still out of reach somehow. So I had this idea. One of the learnings that I took about being better at home and virtual and stuff, it said that for people to build a new habit, they have to do something for about 30 days. After 30 days, that is like a part of your life, and you will now whatever. And to build a habit, it only takes about 60 seconds. So if you can get somebody to do something for 60 seconds a day, 1 minute, then we can, and for 30 days in a row, we can really get them to do something. So I had this idea, and I brought it forward to my boss, and he's bringing it up to the next, food chain guy up, is to push into an inbox or right onto our CRM or something, a video. Have you guys seen the 60-second docs ever? Really great series on YouTube and Twitter or whatever. 60-second docs. Documentary about some weird, crazy person or something for 60 seconds, right? What if I could get 60-second Risk Connect, 60-second Salesforce, 60-second Analytics, 60 seconds, whatever it is, and 10 seconds of it is a flashy image and a theme song, and then I come in and I'm like, hey, let me tell you about something. And if I can capture people's attention and get them into that habit, I think that's how I can start building a further culture. We already have kind of a culture. Like we have weekly Wednesday trainings, like lunch and learns every Wednesday. They do okay. We have some other sessions that people host like every Thursday or every couple Thursdays and stuff like that. They do okay. We have a culture where, just like you, Dom, the stuff is available. We got like 10, 15%, just like you, of people pulling from our catalog. Hundreds of things. But they don't do it. Another thing I want to go on to is what PJ was talking about, the cohorts. I find that this works so well, PJ. And one of the reasons I find it really works is because people need accountability for extra things. And everybody feels like learning is an extra thing. I'm not actually making a widget. You know what I mean? After I learn, there's no product that I can show to my boss and say, I built this and now we can sell it for $1, right? So everybody feels like learning is a waste of time because it's hard to see the ROI. We as human beings are really bad with long-term things, right? That's why we're so bad with climate change and stuff. We can't think about it, right? So with people, we can't tell them like, man, if you learn this now, it's going to pay off like over the next year. It doesn't work like that. So I think using a cohort helps build accountability. I know for me personally, I'm taking a class right now and I'm taking it with 2 other people. We meet every week and discuss it. And if I can't discuss that, I'm going to look stupid, and I don't want to do that. It's an accountability thing. I don't want to look dumb. They're going to hold me accountable. I hold them accountable. So I really like the cohorts. I'm so glad you're going to do that because I think it helps a lot.
And I want to hear from Stephen as well. But like the thing with the cohorts, when PJ said specifically, it's like the same. You're in the same cohort, and it's that same concept of if you go to a gym class and you're always there at the 8 a.m. Saturday morning thing, like those people know you and they expect you to show up every Saturday at 8 a.m. right? And so and then it's habits, and you build consistency in that habit forming. Which awesome. Yeah,
they work. I was gonna say the cohorts work. Not at this current role, but in prior roles, I've used cohorts, and they truly do work. And I am bringing them into my leadership development program for new managers. And then I appreciate, Alec, what you're talking about in regard to the accountability, and that's one of the reasons I'm bringing in 2 approaches. One is all about practice, right? So as you practice a new skill as a manager, how do you coach? How do you deal with delegation? How do you have these conversations? Because new managers, this is what I'm grappling with, is new managers not having the ability to communicate because they just don't have practice, right? So this program is all about practice of communication and coaching and asking questions. So there'll be practice time, but then we're looking at developing a journal that they can actually document, the journal having specific questions in it that tie back to the learning, the practice of the skills. What did they learn about about each other? What did they observe from each other in peer practice? And they're writing in it on a weekly basis and reporting out with their manager on a monthly basis, with the manager having specific questions to pull out. Did they write in the journal? Did they not write in the journal? And therefore, they're only spending maybe 2 or 3 minutes a day writing in a journal, but they're doing it to specific questions, similar to if you were doing, hey, I'm taking an online course and there's a knowledge check, right? Well, this does the same thing, but it's theirs, they own it, and then they can look back and gain insights and their learning on their own through their own practice and their own output of that practice. So with myself and the HRBPs, along with the managers as part of this, that's how we're driving the accountability, but creating a culture of camaraderie with the cohorts to hold each other accountable through this 7-month experience.
PJ has a great question. I'm also interested in the tactical side. Like, is this a digital journal? How are you facilitating that?
It can be any way. Right now I'm looking at digital. I've been talking to all my 20-year-olds and finding out what they prefer. And so we're going to do a digital. It'll either be a Google Doc format or it'll be a PDF, fill it out through a PDF format, but everybody will have their own. The big thing I'm dealing with right now is trust issues. So in some new managers, there's the trust up the chain. So we'll probably let them choose who they share it with, so they have that freedom. But their managers and then the VPs above that will have certain questions either on a monthly basis or the VPs on a quarterly basis where they're working with the cohorts. So, but Tim's got different free webinars that he does to get you started and really think about the questions to ask. And it's all about the questioning tied to knowledge, skills, and then insights.
You said that was Tim Scott?
Tim Hagen. He's out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, check that out. I love what you said about practice as well. It's one of my favorite, this idea of like deliberate practice and how you can institute that into a training program.
Yep. I also wanted to bring up for Alec, when you were talking about the videos, I've had a lot of success with doing 1-minute homemade videos, either through Beyond, so the animation tool, or doing it through any other piece. But whether it's an interview with another leader, if it's setting it up like a movie that's coming out in a big drama, hey, what's coming next in learning, to create some excitement, that does work. And I have seen, as far as self-election, that going up based on certain programs that you may be rolling that are elective.
Oh, that's cool. I have a friend of mine. I actually got him hired at my company. He's gotten really good at video editing the past couple months because he's on the culture team with me. And it's like, well, we're virtual. We got to do more video stuff. And so we host a monthly, like that show, Some Good News, that John Krasinski had. We've been doing that before he even had it. Or he stole it from us.
Nice.
Thursday. And all kinds of different funny video things. So I love the idea that you mentioned the 3 different ideas of like a coming soon trailer and different things. Mm-hmm. I'll totally steal that.
Just fun. That your 20s and your 30s, they just need it in 1 minute to 2 minute blocks to create some excitement, throwing it out on Slack, and it's quick. And then you just tie it back into your intro if you're putting it on your LMS for somebody that may not have seen it on Slack, but it's there for your intro.